All right, lecture 14. There it is. The Reformation. Ah, the Reformation. No, that's the Inquisition, which came out of the Reformation. Right, all right. Okay, so let me just bring this up here. This is just when I had time to make these slides years ago. And, right, I could make all of those stupid, things that come in. Anyway, so again, this period of dynamic change that initially begins with the Renaissance. Certainly, we have three parallel events. We have the Renaissance, we have the Protestant Reformation, we have the age of exploration, right, and discovery for Western Europeans as they realize that the end of the world does not end, over the horizon off the Atlantic coast there. That there's all other civilizations that are out there. But again, I not to digress, but again, another massive shift and change certainly happens and centers around the church in Western Europe. And again, the period of the Reformation would be an attempt to reform the Catholic Church, and those attempts to reform the Catholic Church would ultimately lead to a splintering of the Christian church in Europe, where you would have the Catholic Church, and then you would have churches that in essence are in protest against the Catholic Church, hence the term Protestant, right? And again, I've always equated it to orange juice. The Catholic Church is orange juice with the Pope. Protestant churches are churches with no Pope. Yeah, it's terrible, but that's a good way to remember it. It's a good way to remember it. Okay. So let's get at it. Let's go. All right. So in terms of religious thinking and challenging the Catholic Church prior to the arrival of a German Augustinian priest named Martin Luther, we have two individuals that would challenge the Catholic Church in similar ways to how Luther would challenge the Catholic Church. One was an English priest named John Wycliffe, who was a master of religious studies at Oxford University. And Wycliffe would argue that the Catholic Church does not control one's destiny. All right. Again, as you'll see in our documentary of Martin Luther, that the Catholic Church had embedded itself in not only the daily rituals, if you will, of people, but really was the institution for legal documents, from baptism to marriage to death. Certainly, it becomes embedded in the lives of people and across the arc of people's lives. Wycliffe argued that salvation only came through faith in God. Again, something that Luther's going to argue, and certainly Luther, as you'll see, had been a lawyer in training. Certainly, he knows how to do his research. Wycliffe would also translate the Latin Bible into English so that he and his followers could read and interpret the Bible as they saw fit. And those who followed Wycliffe were known as Lollards. Why? I don't know. I'll have to check that out. Then we have Jan Hus, who comes from an area known as Bohemia, which is in the modern day, I believe it's Slovakia. I believe it's either between the Czech Republic and Slovakia, somewhere in there, one of those two. It was a lot easier when it was just Czechoslovakia. And now they have two, they made themselves two separate countries, and so. And he attacked the corruption within the Catholic Church. When Huss went to the Catholic Church authorities to discuss his issues with church officials, the church officials invited him to dinner. And Huss asked, well, what's for dinner? And they said, steak. You, on it, burning. Sorry. It's steak, for S-T-A-K-E, for dinner. Right. And again, so it shows you what happens when you try to stand up to the Catholic Church. You're burned at the stake for heresy. the Hussites of Central Europe would break away from the Catholic Church, and I put a link on your on the old blackboard where you have it's like a 15-minute interview, and you can read along if you want from a pastor of the Jan Hus Church in New York City. It's on the Upper East Side of New York City, and kind of gives you a little more history of Jan Hus and the church itself, and certainly some more modern issues. It's kind of interesting to listen to. I'm thinking about joining that church. I'm done with the Catholics. Maybe I'll be a Quaker. Might be better. Okay, so let's get to the fuel that also will help to create the Reformation in Europe. And I'm just going to pop all of these up. Oh, I went too far. Let me go back. I went too far. That's what okay, right, here we go. So, hang on. Bringing it back up. Stay with me, people. Got it. Okay. So these are the key elements that will build into this Reformation, this challenge of church authority. And certainly we go from left to right. The most essential question of the Reformation: how does one obtain salvation? All right, and certainly again, the Catholic Church will argue that you have to do a variety of things to obtain salvation throughout your life and on a regular basis, and certainly follow the rules of the church, and anything else that comes down the pike. And again, reformers like Luther are going to question that. Again, this question would allow John Wycliffe to quietly break away from the church. Certainly, the Renaissance is going to help fuel the Reformation in a variety of ways. Not just the rebirth in classical philosophy and the dissemination of that philosophy in native languages, but also to the art of the Renaissance is going to fuel a spending spree in the Vatican, and certainly that's going to anger people, including a young Martin Luther, right? And that will force the Catholic Church to try to raise more money through the sale of indulgences. So the Renaissance, in regards to the Reformation, is almost a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. Again, which brings us to our next element, and that is corruption within the Catholic Church itself. All right. And which had been going on for a few centuries. Certainly, Gutenberg's printing press, the internet of its day, all right, and allowing people like Martin Luther to print and publish their arguments and to disseminate those arguments so that people can read them and debate them themselves. Certainly, a lot of unrest, all right, fueled largely by the bubonic plague, right, which began to lay waste in Europe starting in the mid-14th century, all right, at least 150 years before this Reformation really gets underway. But it would continue to lay waste throughout Europe and certainly create lots of uncertainty. It would fuel a belief in what's called I can say it, give me a second, millenarianism, all right, the end of days, if you will. The end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. I know for me, watching the Masters Championship this year, and they're going right now. As a matter of fact, here I am. I'm conducting my lectures while they play golf at Augusta National. It almost does have a end of the world feel, even though I've seen the U.S. Open already played this year, and certainly watching the NFL and college football and the NHL and Major League Baseball, but it's certainly not the same. And certainly, as we live through these times, people, question, what's going to happen, and certainly that uncertainty will fuel a lot of issues as we've talked about already. Along with this uncertainty, you've got peasant revolts throughout Europe. You had one during the early years of the bubonic plague in Central Europe. And certainly they would continue from time to time. So all of this uncertainty, both from a spiritual level, certainly from social uncertainty and political uncertainty, is going to create, the fuel, if you will, for this challenge to the Catholic Church. So here we are. Here's Martin Luther, and again, I'll give you a little brief biography on the right side there. He studied law, as you're going to find out. You're going to get more detail on that. He studied the Bible, studied the works of St. Augustine. Again, St. Augustine, one of my all-time favorite saints. Remember, he was the one with the prayer, "Oh God, make me chaste, but not yet." Okay. Certainly living through the bubonic plagues that would kill some of his classmates at college in Erfurt. So he believed in millenarianism, and certainly that faith and salvation were important to him. And not only as a young scholar, but certainly as a monk and as a priest and a teacher, as a professor of Bible studies. Certainly, from the Catholic Church's point of view, the Catholic Church, in obtaining salvation, stressed faith and good works, prayer, fasting, pilgrimages. You see it all there: the sacraments, attending Mass, giving, tithing to the Church. Certainly, the Catholic Church would even allow the purchase of what were called indulgences. And indulgences, as you know, or if you don't know, you could buy indulgences which would pay for less time in purgatory. Now, again, the Catholic Church, there are three levels. You have, you certainly have earth in the middle, right, where we live in the present day, okay, until people die. And again, we're looking at from church doctrine, right? We're not, there's no, and then below us would be hell, and that's because you not only did you sin, but you refused to try to even gain salvation. And then you have before heaven, rather, you have purgatory, right? And purgatory is where you would have your soul cleaned, if you will, all right? Where you tried to be a good Catholic, but you really weren't a good Catholic, and then you would go to purgatory for a couple of thousand years, and then at some point you would go to heaven, but it's interesting. In the early 1960s, at the Vatican II Council, the Catholic Church eliminated purgatory. Catholics no longer have to have their souls dry cleaned. It's either heaven or hell, I guess. And but instead of going through purgatory, you have to go through Miami Airport. Now, if you've ever been through Miami Airport, you know what I'm talking about. Oh, God bless. Okay, right. So these indulgences, which again you could buy to pay for less time in purgatory, even pay for sins that you haven't even made yet. That's a crazy notion. Again, they were sold as a means to help complete the construction of St. Peter's Basilica. And again, you'll see there are other things that the papacy, this is Pope Leo X, again, he's a Medici, was also financing. So I'll let the documentary tell you more about that. So certainly the sale of indulgences incenses and angers Luther, all right? Because he believed, and again, based on his study of the Bible and his teaching of the Bible to his Catholic priests who were his students, that faith in God alone is the key to salvation. That you don't have to do all of these other crazy things. All right. And I say crazy. I don't mean crazy like if you're a Catholic, I don't mean to offend. I'm a Catholic, and just there's so many other things that you'd have to do as a Catholic, and I don't see going to St. Peter's Basilica and touring, the basilica as a pilgrimage. I mean, yeah, I'm a Catholic, and it was amazing to see it in person. I know that when we went to the Medici Chapel in Florence to see the Medici tombs, they had in the foyer they had the bones of various saints, and it's like, wow, I mean, am I on a pilgrimage? Maybe I am. I don't know, So anyway, and again, he also believed in independent Bible study as well. And certainly, all of this would fuel Luther to publish his 95 arguments, his theses. Okay, each is a thesis or an idea, right, about reforming the Catholic Church. And certainly, unlike Jan Hus, Luther had two critical allies that would give him protection from the Catholic Church. One would be the support from German princes in his region, who also, had their issues with the Catholic Church. And certainly the printing press, the dissemination of his information throughout Europe would also help to, in essence, give him some protection. Right. I went too far again. God bless America. I'm going to try that again. Oh, I went too far. Hang on. I got to go back a slide. Okay, there we go. Right. So, again, in looking at the aftermath, the effects of Luther's actions and posting these theses and challenging the Catholic Church and living to tell the tale, we see that there are churches that would protest against Catholic teachings and rites and all of those things to obtain salvation. And certainly we have, on the left, we have Lutheranism. And again, Luther did not start out to create his own church. Luther started out really to try to push the Catholic Church to reform. The one thing we want to appreciate, and again, I think you'll get this from the documentary, is that the Catholic Church is a top-down organization, right? At the head of the church is the Pope. Underneath the Pope are the cardinals of various archdioceses, these supersized dioceses and dioceses. Then the bishops, and then your priests who maintain parishes, right, for the diocese, for each diocese. It's a top-down organization. To have a priest who's not even running his own parish, all right, challenge the Pope of all people. Again, top down information and challenges don't come from the bottom up. Everything goes from the top down. So certainly Luther, again, perhaps he saw himself intellectually on the same level as say the Pope, which I would argue, yeah, I mean, I'm cool with it. But again, understand the organization that you're in. So what does he do? As his ideas spread, we have people who will follow the ideas of Martin Luther, hence the creation of the Lutheran Church, right? Luther does not stand up and say, "Yeah, I'm out of here." No, he never says that. He's excommunicated, yes, but he doesn't necessarily go. He didn't start, trying to create his own church. Just as much as Jesus didn't go on his mission to create his own church, he was trying to reform Judaism. Right, certainly at a time when, that Palestine and Judea and those other provinces were under, Roman authority. So certainly at a very challenging time. So again, you can see here what Lutherans emphasize. And again, I love on the bottom, the last one, although appearing liberal, the idea of challenging the Catholic Church, Lutherans were very conservative and law-abiding. The idea that the rules that they establish, certainly they're going to stick to, whether they be the spiritual rules or rules, for their communities. Now, another church that would split off around about the same time was formed by the John Calvin, which this, and again, known as Calvinism, and originates to France. It would spread through into Switzerland and spread as far north as Scotland. John Knox would lead the Calvinist charge in the Reformation in Scotland and England. So you have the Presbyterians, you have the Puritans, You'd have the separatists as well. Those would be your future pilgrims against because Thanksgiving's on the way, right? And the big belief in under Calvinism is what's called predestination. The idea that inward belief and outward integrity were signals of one's fate in the afterlife, right? That God already knows who's going to be saved and who's going to be damned. And their communities become very, very theocratic. The idea that government and the Calvinist religion were intertwined. Certainly, we would see that as Puritans settled in Massachusetts Bay in the 1620s and early 1630s. That to be part of government, you had to be a full member of the Puritan church. And again, the idea behind another idea behind Calvinism is removing the Catholic trappings, the Catholic rituals, the saints and everything else, the holy feast days. Okay, for instance, Puritans didn't celebrate Christmas. They thought it was very, very papist, very, very Catholic, and they didn't celebrate Christmas. So there you go. So we keep coming, and certainly there's more. There's other Protestant churches. Again, the French Calvinists would be known as Huguenots. They face serious violence at the hands of Catholics. Again, France, a very Catholic country. The kings were very loyal to the papacy, and vice versa. In 1598, the Edict of Nantes was established, which allowed for temporary religious toleration in France, and certainly as colonies are established by the French in North America, certainly you would see Huguenots take advantage of that and flee Europe, flee France for religious freedom. And then you have the Anglican Church, the Church of England, as we've kind of mentioned in previous lectures, and again created more for political convenience than religious reform. And again, you can go through your notes there. One of the things I want you to, I think I asked you in the last supplemental reading assignment, as you read Henry VIII's love letters to Anne Boleyn, what was the fate of each of his wives? So take a look at that. And certainly not to be outdone, the Catholic Church has its own, in essence, calls into question not only what it's been doing, but certainly trying to push back against this Reformation and the creation of these separate Protestant churches. And in essence, it's a pushback, and certainly the church tries to reform itself. If we start down at 5 o'clock at the Council of Trent, right? At that council, the cardinals would abolish indulgences, although it does reestablish the rule that the Pope has final say on all decision, and there are no deal with the Protestants. The idea of reaching out, an olive branch, if you will, to try to bridge the divisions that were created by this Protestant Reformation, no deal. You would see in the modern day, Pope John Paul II, Pope Paul VI, Pope John the 23rd, all try to create more ecumenical dealings with the Protestant churches and meeting with Protestant church leaders. Even Pope Francis, I think, has certainly reached out, not necessarily trying to make peace, but or trying to bring these churches back into the fold. That's never going to happen. But again, just trying to find some consensus, and certainly there's a lot of consensus, but again, that monopoly that the Catholic Church held, that spiritual and doctrinal monopoly that the Catholic Church held, was broken during the Protestant Reformation. If we go to 7 o'clock, certainly the Catholic Church would use censorship to try to instill its rule and control, what's called the Index of Prohibited Books. And the Catholic Church utilized the Index of Prohibited Books up until 1966. Among the works on those, on the index, of prohibited books. I'm just going to go off the top of my head. I know the works of Honoré de Balzac. I know some of you are laughing out there when I say Balzac. Um, I'm laughing now too. Balzac. There's all sorts of works. You can look it up. There's this thing. It's called the internet. Go take a look at it. And that was in use until 1966. I almost equate it to, even in the modern day, Dan Brown, the famous novelist who wrote the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons, among others. And when the Catholic Church says don't read the Da Vinci Code or see the film, or don't read Angels and Demons or see the film, I'm going to read the book and see the films. Yeah. I know there's a special ring in hell for me. He's already built it. It's already fitted out, ready to go. If we go to roughly 9:30, 10 o'clock, we have the Inquisition, which was used against Protestants, Jews, and Muslims. Certainly Spain, being a loyalist Catholic nation, loyal to the Catholic Church, certainly probably the most infamous inquisitions would be held there. There you go. And then we go to 12 o'clock and we have new orders, new Catholic orders created, including the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, as they're known, founded by Ignatius Loyola, certainly, he was a Spanish Catholic priest, and Francis Xavier as well. And certainly the Jesuits would become the new teachers of the Catholic faith, and certainly preaching the ideas of universalism, forgiveness, that the Catholic Church is the universal church. And certainly they would establish schools and colleges and universities throughout the world. My daughter graduated from Xavier University in Cincinnati, and it's a Jesuit school, and she got one hell of an education. So good stuff. Here locally, Fordham University is a Jesuit school. St. John's is, if you're interested, because I'm a St. John's grad, St. John's is Vincentian, St. Vincent de Paul. We try to help people out in need. That's our focus. And then certainly new Catholic universities throughout Europe. All right, again, trying to create some balance, if you will, between this Protestant schism and the Catholic Church. All right, there you go. I'm going to let you go so you can go listen to the short interview of the pastor of the Jan Hus Church, and certainly get on the video, the documentary of Martin Luther. And again, you have some questions that might appear, by the way, on the on Unit Exam 3 from the Martin Luther video documentary. Okay, guys, we'll see you later.